Hey everybody, welcome to HIT.OR.DIE podcast, episode 64. We're here with your hosts, Jake Saldati and Chad Rothford. Our guest today is the newly head baseball coach at Bullard High School, Tom Donald, also known as the legendary coach at Buchanan High School.
Stop that.
Truth. Also, like to say happy Bobby Bonilla Day out there to all you baseball fans.
And this is going to be 1 year when this comes out.
Yep. It'll be 1 year tomorrow, July 2nd, from our first episode.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, so we had to have a big guest. We get major guests all the time, but we had to have a big guest for the 1 year anniversary. So Coach Donald, let's get into it real quick. Got the job at Buchanan in '99, was your first season. Mm-hmm. So the 20 years with a record of 485, 135, and 6 ties. Right. So let that sink in real quick. I'll say it again, 485, only 135 losses, and 6 ties, 6 section titles, 10 track titles, and 2 national titles, which was in 2011 and 2016. He was also California High School Coach of the Year in 2016 by USA Today. Tremendous 2 decades. That's unbelievable, the amount of wins, titles, and all that. But let's get into getting the job at Buchanan and trying to run the program, I guess, differently than it was. It wasn't really a powerhouse program when you took it over, and just implementing your discipline and your baseball program, how that happened.
Well, I was an assistant for Greg Funk, who really laid a great foundation, for success before I got in there, and I assisted him a couple years. And, he really is the guy that probably set the tempo for the program in terms of desire and working hard and, being selfless and things like that. So I just tried to take it when it was my turn to take over the program. I just tried to further that a little bit more. But I really owe a lot to Greg Funk for allowing me the opportunity to assist him and then take over in '99. And you watch, and things, what every coach does is, when you're assistant, you watch and you say, I would do that and I wouldn't do that, things like that. I mean, I've had a ton of assistants over the year that have done the same thing, and it's great. And so the program was new. I mean, the school was new. We didn't have a lot in terms of facilities and batting cages and, a legitimate, freshman and JV field. We had the fields, but they weren't in real good shape. And so, I had this sort of mentality that, like, we don't have a stadium like Clovis West, and we don't have a stadium like Clovis High, and so how can what's our niche, So our whole idea was, let's create a facility where kids get better and really work, and so we doubled the amount of cages, and we really took a lot of pride in our JV and freshman fields and things like that. So it was just a labor of love over a long time. It didn't happen overnight. It took a lot of people, in terms of supportive admin and things like that, and formulating a staff that guys that wanted to stay on together and things like that. So it was a daunting task, but yet I stepped into a place that was already sort of kind of going, and we owe that to Greg Funk, really.
And when we talk about staff, I mean, we talk about this all the time about high school coaching staffs, and we thought we had a pretty good one at Madera with the pro guys and whatnot, but the staff you put together that was pretty much together for a long time. Legitimate Valley guys, legitimate college and professional baseball players. And to put a coaching staff like that together, what kid isn't going to want to go in there and buy in to the program and the system and what they're trying to do? And I think that truly was a blessing for you to get that type of coaching staff to be with you for that long.
That was one of the first things I did was, I was smart enough to surround myself with people that really were good baseball men and good people and loved what they did. And so, I'm not the best infield coach. I'm not the best outfield coach. I don't know anything about pitching or catching. So I went out and got guys that knew those things. And so, I mean, not to say I don't know anything about baseball, but because I was really good about being an open book and picking brains in between, in the off season and going to colleges and talking with coaches and talking to pro guys. And I wanted to be the very best I could be so that we would create some kind of a product that our boys, our guys would get better and maybe have an opportunity to play the next level or whatever that is. But I think, that was the smartest thing I did over the tenure of my career, was to find quality guys that really knew what they're talking about, and I let them coach. I didn't lord over them. I wasn't a micromanager. If you're the infield guys, well, then, it's your responsibility. I put the responsibility on them. Make sure they're the very best they can be. That's on you. So if we get to a game and we're not looking very good in the infield, well, what we see is what we coach. And if we don't like it, then we got to make it better. How do we do that? And so quality guys that knew baseball and were, had some coaching under their belt. They weren't 26, for the most part. Most of them were older guys that had done some coaching, and so they'd been there, done that. And so I really think one of the major strengths of that program was solid coaching staff. There was a lot of continuity. Like John Sylvia had been with me all 20 years. John Gross was like 16 of those years. Joe Kemp was like 14. I mean, it just went on and on. We were together. They knew, what I would like and not like, and they could head things off like with a player during practice or whatever that might be. They knew what the standard was. They helped set the standard, so it was a lot of fun. I mean, but hard days, obviously, because there's the ups and downs of baseball and dealing with, 14 through 18-year-old young men and all those things. And so my coaching staff, I think that is one of my things I really hang my hat on, that I was smart enough to get guys that really knew what they were talking about and were good and knowledgeable and could impart, were good teachers, could impart that knowledge, because you can be a really good hitter, but if you don't know how to teach a kid how to hit, then, you're not really coaching. You've got it's the art of teaching, is really what it is. And so we prided ourselves on, being fundamentally sound and what do we need to do? What are they teaching out there now? We had to be relevant. We couldn't be old school all the time, like back in the 70s when you used to coach. You used to coach this way. Well, that wasn't going to work with that kid that in 2010. You have to reach the athlete, and almost on his terms, but he knows the expectation of what you want as a coach. So that takes time, to develop. And that goes into the culture and all those kinds of things. So it was really enjoyable.
Adding, though, to that, and I think, James Patrick did a really good job of this, but with community in that area and your junior highs.
Right.
I mean, it started there, maybe even younger than that. And it was one of the first times, because I was a kid. So, I mean, I got, we played against you guys, and it was one of the few instances where I saw at that level, it tied all the way to the top.
Yes.
And can you talk about even just how important that was to you guys?
Oh, big time. When I got the job in 99, the school wasn't all that old, and we didn't have a Babe Ruth program. And so, I kind of got tired of looking around, having little summer camps, and these little dudes with their blue hats and their C's running all over our field. And I thought, no, we got to create some future Bears here. What's the deal? We need to hook these little guys so that they want to be a Bear, and so we need to create our own Babe Ruth program. And so started that with a couple of dads that knew what they were doing. We had to pull away from Clovis Babe Ruth, which was tough to do because it was established, it was successful. I mean, why are you going to break up a good thing?
You take your hits for that?
Probably.
A little bit.
Sure, but what does it matter?
It's a different program.
Sure.
I agree with that.
I mean, we got kids
But
that
there are also probably Buchanan territory guys that were playing in Clovis because that's all the Babe Ruth.
That's all there was,
yeah.
right? So I mean, I got kids at Garfield, and I got little fourth graders and fifth graders, sixth graders wearing Clovis Babe Ruth hats. It's like, no, we got to change that. Nothing against Clovis Babe Ruth, because it was such a great program and still is. But we needed our own. We needed our future little Bears to know, hey, you're going to play here someday, and you're going to wear the red, white, and blue starting at the age of 8 or the age of 6. We need to have a brand and identity so that they understand, hey, I want to be a Bear down the road. So we had an open meeting. I had some dads that jumped on board and said, hey, this is how we'll do it. I said, let's go. And so it was, we had a meeting at Alta Sierra. I'll never forget it. And it was like, this was going to be the big meeting with all the Clovis Babe Ruth people saying, hey, we're going to break away. And so if you have questions, come to this open forum meeting, and you can fire away at me, because I was up on the stage, And I thought, okay, 10 people are going to show up. The place was packed. I was like, boy, okay, these people are serious about their baseball. I mean, you could tell. And so they just had questions, and I just sort of shared the vision and where we want to go with this and what we need to do. And people bought on, or bought in, and it was really good. And it was a lot of fun. But, I spent time with guys on the Babe Ruth board. We did a Babe Ruth fundraiser. I mean, we did stuff. I wanted them inclusive. It really is that community kind of thing. It really was, that we need to be involved in the Babe Ruth. So we would help with the tryouts. Players would help with the tryouts. would go to tournaments and games and things like that, because it was expected of me as the head coach at Buchanan to know all of my, 4th grade through 12th grade baseball players. I had to know, at the different feeder schools. So it was important that we had a camp, we put little name tags on them and things like that. And so it was, it was just kind of, it was a labor of love, but awesome to see it sort of unfold. And, it was a lot of fun to watch these little dudes, wear the, our logo that, we made at the baseball program, and now it's everywhere. So it's cool.
Yeah, I remember that when I was doing 8th grade at Thomas Jefferson, we ended up playing, which would later become the 2011 national championship team, and minus Jordan Luplow, who didn't play in junior high. But I just thought that, then that's why I think about that. It started there, and I mean, those kids, it was.
Yes. I can tell you that, over the years you saw there were groups of guys, that started at a young age, and it was dads that would have them on a team, and those teams would stay together, and they really were really like schooled in baseball. And you could tell, you can see that little 9-year-old that played with this group at 9 and 10 and 12, and then they get in the junior high and that little group is still together. There's a lot to be said about that. I wasn't sure, if that was really a good formula. But it really, over the years, when I look back, you can see that those dads that had a group and just stayed with them and that were good baseball coaches. It wasn't a daddy ball thing. It was all about, this is how you play the game, and this is what you do with the ball when it's hit to you. When you're learning that at 9 and 10, you're pretty well schooled if that same group, is together at 12. There's a lot of camaraderie there. It's great for the parents and, things like that. So I think that was an important sort of unseen ingredient to the success of our program.
Yeah, and what kid's not gonna, look out the dugout and see the head varsity coach at Buchanan and not get a little excited about,
Oh, I guarantee they didn't know who I was, which was totally fine. As long as they knew who their coach was, that was great.
Well, we did.
Going further, too.
No, I'm saying with Noakes. With
sure.
Noakes, because that stuff sounds like what I grew up in with Bullard and the way they did Bullard, Babe Ruth, and all that.
Right.
I mean, Noakes,
listen,
he doesn't look like your average guy either, and you can tell. But
Right.
seeing him out there, you get a little excited.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. I liked, being around those little dudes, because it's just such the naivete of them and baseball, and the whole thing about hitting a ball and running, and it was just great to see. And the coaches trying to coach them up, and the ball's hit to you, where do you go with it? It was just really good to see all that in the red, white, and blue. It really was a sense of pride, and then not from me by any means, just being a part of that program and seeing how these people really are making this thing go, because they're the ones they're the choo-choo train. It's your lower levels, it's your parents, it's your your admin, it's all that takes all of that to run a program.
Yeah, and the other thing, not to jump too far ahead though, is once you did get the stadium, having those little league nights and junior high nights and elementary. I mean, I'm sure James did stuff like that, but Madera, we never did that. So I remember we were playing a road game. My cousin went to Cole, and he was a 6th grader and running out there. I'm like, dang, hey, whoever our head coach was at the time, I forget. What are we doing? We're missing the boat. We talk about kids leaving Madera's program all the time. Mm-hmm. What are we doing to keep them here?
Right.
And still, to this day.
Because those guys were like big leaguers to us. Like, I remember watching Phillips.
I mean, there was tons of little kids on that field at every position. It was neat to see.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's part of the deal is, I don't know if we're getting off track, but the theme nights were just something I stole from minor league baseball when Jason was playing minor league baseball. It's like this, military appreciation and Pitch for Pink and all these different kind of theme nights. I thought, wow, that's going to get our community involved. People are going to come to our games, because that was the idea. And getting lights was huge. We could have night games. There's a serious advantage to having lights. And, I'm hoping Bullard puts in lights, that the district
that won't
puts
happen
in.
Ever.
Oh, thanks. Well, okay. I guess I'm done.
We can hope.
What they should do is move the varsity field to where the freshman field is, behind center field. That way the lights are there and they won't affect the old houses around.
Oh, let me tell you. Well, so that's just that whole theme night was a whole lot of fun. We get special uniforms, for those nights, and it really sort of, I'm hoping, it seemed as though it excited the community, and I know it did the players and the student body, and it was a lot of fun. So maybe hoping to bring some of that here.
So the wheel starts turning, and I remember 2001. That was my last year, and I think you guys hadn't lost a game. We're number 1 in the state, and
Oh yes, you're going to bring that up, aren't you?
no, I won't. We'll go. We'll,
What, Underwood?
yeah, Coach
Yeah,
Underwood.
that's Underwood.
Sophomore.
Threw a one hitter. I
Yeah.
got it. Breaking ball like none other that day.
But
Sure.
just even 01, 02, 03, I mean, one ridiculous teams. And I don't want to bring up the losses. I mean, you face
There's only
James-
135.
No,
so
but
we
what
could
I'm
bring up
saying
some.
is like in 05, you finally break through
Yeah.
and you get that one.
Right.
And it started the next 10 years of just madness. What did those three, like, how can you talk about just those back to back to back? Like,
Losses.
well, just what
So I was the Marv Levy of
where,
high school football. I get it. I mean,
and
it's
no,
okay.
to finally break through and like
No,
what
I
it
know.
taught you, like what lessons you got from that and to provide
Trust
your
me.
team.
You know, it was, I never really felt like the monkey was on my back. I mean, I thought it was great just to get there, but we wanted that final push to win it. But, you learn over time about, okay, it's early. Am I going to bunt with this guy? Is it really important that I score first, or am I going to play for a big inning early in the game? Do you score that first run, even with your 3-hitter, guy in second base, hit a double, do I bunt him over, or do I let my big guy, big donkey swing? Is scoring that first run, is that going to, like, everybody take a collective sigh of relief and then we can relax and go? All those things sort of juggle through your head, and so I think that, that those 3 games were definitely learning experiences. But, that day, those teams played better than us. I mean, bottom line, even if I had a better team, and I think probably two of those years probably did,
I know 02 and 03.
Yeah.
I mean, 03 was.
01, you guys
Well,
won like
01
32 games.
Yeah, it was.
01 was good. I wasn't on varsity then, but
Right.
I know
01.
02 with Gibson and Olson.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys beat us in the playoffs that year. That was good.
And you look at that group of seniors, the Toby Garasians and the Raleigh Gibbs, those guys were, their 3 years, they won like 80 games. I mean, they were just studs. And, I wish they'd have left, winning their last game of their senior year, or their junior year or their sophomore year. But, you feel bad a little bit about that because you just want so much for them to experience that euphoria of winning a Valley title. It's hard to do. Things have to happen right. You got to be a little lucky. You got to be good. You've got to be used to the big moment, and all those things wrapped up in 7 innings, is a lot to take on. But I can't say enough about those early senior classes and really what in their leadership and what they did to set up the program for down the road.
It's like everybody must have felt that win in 05.
It was awesome. Justin Wilson was not gonna be beat that day. He was a big game pitcher. He would get deep into counts and things like that. Like we always used to joke. I used to smoke like Marlboro pack every time he'd pitch because it'd be like punch out leadoff hitter. Then he'd go 3-1 and hit the guy. And then there's a guy, and then he'd go, ball to the backstop, and then he'd strike out. It's just like, I'm going to hang with this kid because he'll get it. And that day he was tough. I mean, he really was a warrior. He was a warrior all year. But that day he literally said, like, jump on my back, I'm going, and he was huge for us. So it was a lot of fun. And I think it was really good for the program in that's like, okay, good. We got over that hump. All right, now here's the expectation. We don't want to get to the game. Now we expect to win the game, which we did before, but you needed to get that final push that everybody kind of went, okay, we've arrived. We're here. Now what do we do? Now we really got to go, because that's the expectation.
And then you go back to back. What was 05, 06, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, you look at the run, even though you didn't win 01, 02, 03,
Right.
from there until about, what was it, 17, 16 was the last one, 17? I forget the last one was.
16.
16?
15 and 16.
That's a long, I mean, it's hard to get there. You said it. It's hard to get, and it's hard to get there and win. I don't think people.
you have 10 years and you won 6 times in that span.
Right.
10 to 11 years. That's
I
unbelievable.
had great players and great coaching. Literally, my view was from 36,000 feet. I'm running the overall deal. 20% of what I did was coach on a daily basis. The rest of it was handling all the other stuff. To release coaches to go do their thing. They didn't have to worry about fundraising. They didn't have to worry about, our second baseman on the JV team is, not a 2.0 right now. I'll handle that stuff. you guys coach, make sure it gets done, and we're ready to roll. And they were good. I mean, I can't say enough about them over the years, all of them.
We'll get into that. You have so many players that moved on to Division I, and you had Major League Baseball players. Just how satisfying is that as a coach to see how many players you've had go on and play at such a high level, and then also get into, let's not go over the fact that your son is, I say this all the time, I compare every shortstop in this area to him because he is the best player that I think, because I played with him and against him. I think he is the best, or at least the top 5, if everybody wants to get into it, to ever come out of this area.
I would agree with that statement.
And
not being his dad, just the productivity.
Oh, I mean, when was the last time somebody hit 568 with 12 homers and, as a leadoff hitter?
And in 03 when pitching was really good.
Really good.
Right.
So get into not just him, but all the players, but also having.
Well, and Sammy played at Fresno State too.
Absolutely.
It's not, it was another D1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then go into that experience with the process that Jason went through with recruiting the colleges and professional scouts as well.
Right.
As a dad and a coach,
The first part you want to talk about all the players.
Yeah.
Kind of like it's very satisfying because you're so happy for that player because he's put in so much time and effort and sacrificed. That kid has sacrificed other areas of his life, whether he's not going to go over here and do this. He's in the batting cages. He's on the mound. He's throwing his pens. He's running. He's lifting weights. He's doing his agility stuff, whatever that might be. A lot of sacrifice goes in. From that player and that kid, and so it's a lot of fun to watch them at the next level. It's like, I think my coaching staff did such a good job of preparing them for next level that as freshmen, some of them could step in, which is a huge thing. And we had a great relationship with colleges, and I think they trusted our opinion. They might ask us about a kid, and we'd say, no, I don't think he's a guy for you. And you had to look at what that program was about, and is that a fit for that kid? Can he handle that head coach, that pressure, or whatever that might be? But that part of the job was really enjoyable to me to see, can we get guys to play at the next level? But we weren't going to be dishonest about it, because if I told Fullerton, this is a guy for you, and he doesn't pan out, then they're not going to listen to me for the next time I say, hey, I got a dude. So I was, I think one college coach even told me, look, Tom, you even undersell your players, because I didn't want them to think I'm just blowing smoke and trying to get my guys. It was never like, I got to get everybody there, or we got to get everybody there. No, it was, if the kid deserved it, if he could really play, then we would help with that in any way we could, But I would get calls about other players around the conference or whatever. Do you think he's a guy? And I'm like, and I would give an honest opinion, but I kept it between me and the coach. I didn't share it with anybody else. It wasn't anybody else's business, And I'm not saying it, because I said they were going to go. No, it was just an honest opinion, kind of a thing. So that part of the job is really, there's a real sense of pride in watching those guys go on, because maybe you played a small little part, in the mental development to be able to handle the pressure, that kind of a thing. And then going through the process with Jason, really made me a better coach and made me for the parents that were about to go through it, because you just don't know what you don't know. There's just so much to that college recruiting process. And just to be able to handle it all. And then you get the coaches that maybe put a little heat on you. Hey, we need you to sign now. Well, what we learned and what I learned over the years was, no, you don't. You don't have to listen to that heat. That coach can handle that heat. You need to make the best decision for you as a family and as a player. Where do you fit? Don't go to the best scholarship offer. Go where you think you will blossom as a person, and not just, a shortstop or an outfielder or a catcher. You need to look at the total picture, kind of a thing. So I think that going through that with Jason was really helpful for me because then I'd kind of been in those parents' shoes, and I could help them with different things, and I tried to.
Yeah, and one story that I always tell is Jason at the city-county game. You're at the city-county all-star game to goof around and be with your boys,
right.
And here's Jason at shortstop, went through at least 2 shirts,
sure,
fielding ground balls, and you don't think about it then. But even though I made it to a pretty decent level, I look back on it and it's like, I wasn't there at 18.
Right.
I was over goofing off with these guys, and when here's Jason taking ground ball after ground ball, and that's the work ethic that, your program has been known for, not just with him as your son, because he also was like, I know him because I'm a coach's son. You have to do more than everybody else.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to prove everybody wrong or why I am playing, because I'm not playing because he's my dad.
Well, and he wasn't. He wasn't the shortstop. Manzo was when I played.
Yeah, he was a sophomore.
And he was already pretty good. I mean,
well,
so was there pressure in that?
Well, what he'll tell you is, he sat the first 13 games of his sophomore year and then went through 2 other left fielders, and then I had to give him a chance. I mean, looking back, he was probably the best left fielder of the bunch, and I should have done it. But because I think I was a little concerned about, he's only playing because, I wouldn't do that now. No, you're the best guy, you're playing. That's it. I wouldn't have made him wait 13 games. And then he went off and he becomes our leadoff hitter, as a little, 15-year-old kid, and handled that really well. But the thing about him was I never had to ask him to go take ground balls, even when he was 5, 6, whatever. I get home from practice, or if he didn't go with me, he wanted to take ground balls. And if it was rubber balls out in the street, great, that's what we're doing. And he would throw a ball relentlessly, over against the garage door. He just loved doing it. He never was an Xbox guy, never played in those little games. He would put his, we had this thing we'd pull Sammy around behind on our bikes, and a little bugger thing, and Jason would put a tee, a bucket of balls, and he would attach the bugger to his bike, and he'd go find a field. That's what he did for fun. And then he'd go to Clovis West, and he'd throw a ball against the tennis wall by himself. We're like, hey, where's Jason? I don't know. I thought you knew where he was. You know what I mean? Well, we better go to school. Sure enough, that's where we'd find him, kind of thing. But he was, it got to the point where he overworked at the time. Minor league baseball, they told him, hey, stop. You can't take this many ground balls before a game anymore. So they said they limited him at one point, like single A when he first got there. It's like, you can take 20 ground balls and that's it, because you're going to be dead at the end of the 70 season, short season thing. So, and they changed it, it was just, so he was an extreme worker. But I had a number of players that were like that, and it's just such a blessing to have players like that just go. You got to, pull the reins in. It's like, hey, you're working too much. You're going to wear yourself out. So that was, and then I think one story that I'm really proud of is when, he was starting to get all this attention, and we'd have a night game, but he would show up in the batting cages at, if we played at 6:30, he was in the cages by, 2 o'clock. And I just, the first time it really hit me was like, oh, I think he's getting some attention, was he was hitting the cages and there were 25 scouts, like in a half circle. And he didn't even know they were there. He just didn't pay attention to them. And scouts would tell me, they would say, the thing we like about him, obviously the tools and things like that, but he didn't care that we were there, and he didn't fold to the pressure. He just knew he had to get ready for that game that night. And he didn't care that the Dodgers were there and the Giants were there and whatever. Literally 25 guys in a half circle, just because I walked into the dugout, and when I walked out, I saw that and I thought, oh, wow, I've never forgotten that. I thought, man, that is something else. And then that's what, he was really he was mentally tough. A competitor. The other things that scouts would say about him, like, if the team won in the bottom of 7th and he didn't hit the bomb, he's the first guy at the dugout. They love that about him. Kid just liked to win, And so that was a lot of fun going through that as a dad.
Yeah, and we talked to Coach Bates all that. Fortunately, that's the only one we get around here that have your Buchanan players. But I know he loves the Buchanan players because they are mentally tough, not only physically but mentally more so, to be prepared for that level as a incoming freshman.
I would agree. I think Joe Kemp was a guy that was really good at mentally preparing players, and things like that. And Brian Marsubian was really good about talking. Hey, this is the expectation. This is what college practice looks like. This is what the weight room. This is the expectation in the weight room. So guys that had been there, kind of done that, would impart that knowledge, and so they were more prepared. And we would tell them, look, if you think you're going to step in, maybe you're signed, you're going to go to Fullerton. Well, you're working now to be the very best high school player you can be, but you're really preparing yourself for the next level as well. So why shortcut it? We're not going to. It's just good old-fashioned hard work. There's no other. We weren't gimmicky at all. It was just, we're going to put in our time and our effort. For instance, one of the first days when I was over here last year at Bullard, it was time to run some infield practice, and did a typical, what I thought was a typical round of ground balls. Brady Zabort came over and said, "Oh my gosh, I've never taken that many ground balls in my life." Jamal Le Guin said the same thing when he came over from Sanger. After his first day, he went to Subi, he's like, "That was a lot of ground balls." I said, "Well, that was 15 minutes. You know, we do that every day, right? Because that's just who we are. We're blue collar guys. We're not going to get caught up in the whatever, all the hoopla. We got to work, you know." And so I think if you impart that and you model that you just got to work and go, and you see seniors doing that, the younger guys will buy in.
Yeah, I told him this story when I came over to Clovis West in 2019, and we played Buchanan in the track. And I was watching their batting practice. It was the first time I've watched it, because we've played you in tournaments, so we don't take batting practice.
Right.
So it was the first time I've actually seen batting practice since 03 when I played you my senior year,
Right.
which was a little different then.
Sure.
And I'm just like watching it, and Miranda, ex-player of yours, is in our pitching coach, and I go, "Do you guys do this before? Is this how you guys run batting practice every day?" He's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh. Like, this is a Division I college batting practice, like the way it was run."
Sure.
And I'm just like, wait, these are high school kids. Okay, these guys are yelling after each pitch. It's batting practice. They're yelling after. They're competing on diving, getting dirty. They're
Right.
doing this. Okay, now it's their last round. So Sub's saying, "Okay, live," and
Right.
and I'm just like, I literally, my jaw dropped.
Yeah, it was-
because this is to me, I'm like, no, this is high school baseball, but that's what you're trying to do, and that's why your players are ready and prepared for the next level.
Appreciate that. You know, I think we pride ourselves on pregame BP is like, who's going to get dirtiest. We're not to be a bunch of pretty boys. I mean, we're here to work. We're here to win today. We came for one reason tonight, and let's remember what that's for. So, you know, the little talk before would be remember why we're here, right? We're getting ready to be in a baseball game tonight. You're getting ready to compete. So get your mind and your body right now. And you can't make that play in the game if you haven't made it before the game. So we're diving in the sixth hole, and we're wearing balls off the chest at third base. But it's also, you know, 5 or 6 other coaches expecting the same thing and really being on them about doing that. And so it became a thing of pride, you know.
And I think, and people don't need to, I picture in my head, right? I don't want it to sound like it's military, right? They're having fun.
Oh yeah,
It's not, you know what I mean? Let's put that out there. They're actually enjoying what's taking place.
Yeah, they love it. I mean, you hope to create that sort of environment that
well, it's competition between your your teammates as well, which is fun.
Right.
So I mean, yeah, Brady and I forget the third baseman. He's now the shortstop. Temo. Oh, he was your third baseman. And they're arguing over who's going to get the ball in the 5 hole, and it's like, you know,
Right.
but they're having fun doing it. It's just, it was nice to see, and it's me being an old school guy mixed with new, but you know, that's just the way. And when I look at it as an opposite coach, it's like, hey guys, this is how it should be. This is how you should take BP ground balls, or you know what I mean? It was something nice to see.
It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time.
Oh,
I mean, it really
sure.
does. It takes time to instill that in the culture and the expectation of players. And, you know, so one thing I think we did really well was we really, I put a lot of pressure, expectation maybe is a better word, on seniors. If you can't lead from the front, then how do you expect these little guys to, because it's a whole different ballgame your senior year. All of a sudden it's like, ooh, man, this is a little more important. And we would tell the sophomores or the juniors, you guys don't understand what they feel right now until you are a senior. But what they're asking you to do is to sell out and to don't be a distraction, and to show up to practice every day, ready to roll, because someday you're going to be in their shoes and you're going to be like, oh, now I know what they were thinking, that like, I got to give my best every day to get better, because, you know, you go as your senior goes. I mean, you go as your senior class goes. And so if we can do that and teach that on a daily basis, after a while, it starts to sink in. And then you reward it when you see it at practice. And then, hey, that was a great job, but here's what you should have done maybe on your first step or whatever. So you just, you know, and it was, I would say it was old school, a little bit of military, but like, let's compete, you know, because don't we compete in life? Yeah.
Yeah. And then let's get into 2011, 2016 national champs. I mean, obviously you've won section titles, but to be actually named a national champ, you know, what was that feeling in 2011, and how happy was it or gratifying as a coach or coaching staff to be able to tell your team that in those 2 years?
Yeah, I think, you know, I think one of my favorite teams is the 2011 team, because they they just didn't care. I mean, they didn't get caught up into that. They were really a good focused group that didn't listen to the noise in the outside, the outside the lines. I mean, they were really good, especially on game day. It was such a pleasure because they coached each other, they monitored each other, they policed each other. There were very few problems, you know what I mean? Very few outside distractions and things like that. And that senior class really took care of business. But that is a group that started when they were 8 and stayed together. Yeah. They knew the deal. I mean, some of these boys had been playing together for 10 years already. You know what I mean? It's like there's something to that.
I think was Luplo a
he's junior
that year?
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the best stories, I think, from all the podcasts. I love that he didn't play in junior high.
Right.
And just to go on to what he's done, it break my heart to think he wouldn't have gotten to where he's gotten because he's such a good dude.
And then he got injured, right? So
right.
He didn't play a whole lot, but then his first game back against North, he goes oppo bomb, first AB. And it's like, yep, he's back. Way to go. But that kid, you could tell he was special from the get-go because he was fearless. Nothing scared him. He did not worry about anything. And he was so good the other way. He wasn't an impatient hitter. I mean, he really was. He made a living in right center. And it's like, wow, yeah. And he had some pop, and there was a little bit in him, you could tell he was a competitor and things like that. So, but it doesn't surprise me he's in the big leagues and staying there.
And then 16 with that team, how was that for the second time?
Awesome. It was just one of those teams that kind of comes together and great senior leadership, and once again, it was sort of this, I don't want to say the same formula, different characters, kind of same formula a little bit, but things have to happen right. Other teams have to lose. You have to keep winning. And you try not to get caught up in the hoopla and all that noise. I know I'm repeating myself, but that really was you had to talk to, those guys like, hey, it could all blow up tomorrow. So don't even think about it. Don't worry about it. And then 10 years from now, maybe you can enjoy it, or maybe, but for right now, let's not concern ourselves with that.
But then 16 also had, 15 to kind of feed off of and to use as big game experience.
Sure.
It wasn't fresh for them. But I mean, you go 30-1, it's like, you don't want to lose. You don't want it to be, 2. You don't want a 2 on there. It's like you're fighting all year.
I think we lost the first game of the year.
Was it Clovis North or something like that?
I think it was first game of the year in that Coke Classic.
I forget.
And then I think we rattled off like 30 after that. But yeah, I mean, I've just been so blessed with great, players and great parents, over the years and quality coaches and admin that had your back and things like that. And so it takes all of that. It really does. And over a period of time. So you talk about those teams that, that didn't happen overnight. Those were kids that were getting it done at the freshman level. My freshman coaches were getting it done. My 6th grade coach at Garfield and my 6th grade guy at Dry Creek was really trying to instill baseball. It was Paul Babcock for a lot of years at Alta Sierra that just wanted to run a really good junior high program. That's where he felt that was his fit, that was his niche, and he just took it head on. Wanted a great facility, took pride in it. So how does that just not help the high school program? I mean, come on. I am in debt to those kinds of people, and because it was not me. I'm just telling you now. I just kind of would lead the band a little bit, but for the most part, it was players, and it was parents, and it was admin, and it was coaches. And I really, that's how I feel about it.
Well, getting into the decade team of the year, you have to have some sense of pride in that. With, like you're talking about, it's not just you; it's the whole group for that pretty much owns up to that. But decade team of the year, we actually had an issue with the coach of the year. Not saying Coach Patrick doesn't deserve anything, but to not be nominated, we thought there's no reason that you shouldn't have been nominated. And you don't have to get into it, but how did that feel? Like, just not even be nominated? Because if you put a 10 decade, how does the team of the year and the coach of the year not even in it? Because it didn't make sense to us.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't know anything about it.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know any of the Cal High sports stuff was even out there, and that was happening. I think somebody told me off the side, like, hey, you guys got a team program? I'm like, hey, that's awesome. Great, because really if you look at the decade, that wasn't 1 or 2 teams. That was like, 10 teams of 25 players. That's 250 dudes, that sold out, that were, about program, and were about being selfless and about being part of something bigger than them. That was kids, those were players and coaches and parents and everything that bought in. So, being named that in terms of the decade, whatever was really a tip of the hat to the program as how it should be, because our mantra was program, team, self, and so in no way, shape, or form do I feel like I'm responsible for all that, because I'm not. I was a part of it, right? Because it was bigger than me, and so I really appreciated that was recognized for the program itself, because that took a lot of people to do that, and so and then the coach thing. If I'm going to be true to program, team, self, because here's what I would tell kids and parents over the years: when it comes to your son, I'm going to make a decision what's best for the program first. Maybe you've been a shortstop growing up, but we need you to play left field. You're going to go play left field if you want to get in the lineup. So what's best for the program? What's best for the team? Maybe we need you to hit fourth. We need you to hit ninth, or whatever that might be, or switch positions. And then finally, you're kind of the third guy. You're the third reason when we make that decision because you got to look back-to-back classes. I got a pretty good shortstop. He's a junior. I got a really good shortstop as a sophomore. You know what? You're going to play a little sophomore, but this summer we're going to move you to short, or we're going to move you to second base. We need to see what, I had so many players, like HIT.OR.DIE. What a great example of a guy that started, in center his junior, and then his senior comes in and goes into second base, and is literally one of the best second basemen we've ever had at that school. And just get to balls, his range and his speed. It was just, we had a number of guys that did that over the years. They just had to switch around. Hey, guess what? We need you to play right field. Okay. Kind of a thing. So it was, the decade thing was cool for the program. I was really happy about that. But the coach thing,
Well, and it all, we haven't talked about this, but it also reflects the track.
Right.
It just tells you how good Clovis and James was, and KP at West, and East in the mix, and now at North. It just exposes how good the league is when your team's the best in the state for the decade. It just means you playing one of the best leagues around.
I would agree with that. I heard that earlier, the track is one of the better, and I thought, come on, really? And then when you start playing those teams from Southern California, and you start playing those teams from Northern California, in summer team or tournaments, or maybe Easter, tournaments, things like that, then you start to think, oh yeah, day in and day out, the track is a grind. It really is the expectation to win and to, so I tip my hat to the other track coaches, because you looked and saw what they were doing, and you knew what you had to prepare for. So, boy, we better work. I owe a lot of my maybe some work ethic to James, and knowing how he had that thing rolling. Look, if we're going to compete, then I would watch. Come on, I watch anybody I coach against. What are they doing? Is there something we could do better? Kind of a thing. And so he was that, that sort of push us as a program to get better. And then you look at Jeff Prado over at what he's doing at North. He's going to have that thing rolling, and Ryan Smith is being really consistent in Clovis East, and KP has been there for a long time, and he turns out a product that wins. And how do you have to put in the time, or you're just going to you're going to get buried.
That's where I felt bad for Mulligan, because I thought Central had a good group this year.
But what a good, but what a good coach.
Mitch is great.
He's a great guy.
Absolutely.
And he runs, and his players play hard, and so when you coach against that, well, you gotta match the intensity.
Yeah.
I stole that from Troy Terrapelli, the wrestling coach of Buchanan. He's like, we're going to match the intensity of our opponent. I'm like, ooh. So you'd often hear me say that during a game. Hey, we got to match the intensity. Let's go. We come on, because the target was big on our back every game.
Yes.
You had to show up every game.
Yes.
And that's hard to do when you're 18. That's kind of hard to do sometimes, but you push through, because that's the expectation.
Let's get into, we're not going to get into it very much, but you resigned in 2019 at Buchanan. And after talking to Jason, he said that anybody to take over that program after you, Fonts was the guy that could come in and keep it rolling like he did. Now, did you have any kind of say in who might take over when you resigned?
No, but I think Fonzie was probably, a guy in the back of everybody's mind, because he actually assisted me for a couple of years, and is a quality coach, quality guy. So yeah, I think they got the right guy to run that program now, and wish him the very best. I mean, he's a guy I call and talk about,
Yeah.
hey, let's talk baseball. I mean, we're friends. So, I'm happy for him.
And then you take some time, and then word gets out that Tom Donald's at Bullard in the fall, and we're seeing you on the coaching staff this next year in 2020 when all this goes down. Right. How was it? I mean, obviously you missed the game, and you wanted to be around the game of baseball. It's just in your blood. How did that come about to get over here?
It was. I had some people reach out to me and say, "Hey, what do you think?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not interested in coaching. Right now. What do you think about like a mentor role? Helping a young guy in terms of you've run a program, maybe help him run his program, or help him with organization and practice planning and fundraising." And I'm like, that might be something I might be interested in. Yeah, I don't have to be at practice every day. I can talk to him on the phone and talk to him after practice on the days I do go. And so in the fall, I kind of would go and watch a little bit, and it sort of starts to well up inside you. You're like, oh,
Get the itch.
I'd really like to put my cleats back, my turfs back on, and just kind of help. And so it just sort of evolved into a little bit more of a role, and really enjoyed it. Aaron is an up and coming coach, and I want to make it clear that, I'm just standing in the gap while he gets his credential. I mean, they want him to be the coach. And so he needs to get his credential, and then he will take the reins back over when they think he's ready. And so it's a unique opportunity for me, to kind of get back out there, and I get to be the head coach, and yet I'm going to give him a lot of head coaching responsibilities, and because he needs to learn some more things before, he takes back over again. And if I can do that with him, then he'll be better prepared to handle whether it might be a parent meeting or a fundraising meeting or, whatever comes up. I'm going to have him experience it. If I have to go have a meeting, then he's going to come with me. So
it's kind of like an interim basis right now. I mean, until he's ready.
I'm going to take that interim tag off and say, no, I'm going to run the show. I'm going to run Bullard baseball how I think it should be run. I'm absolutely thrilled because this is a great community. Man, the community here has been really good to me and very supportive, and I've enjoyed that part of it. And so interim, almost, but really I want to run it and help him, grow as a coach and try to bring in more coaches and some additional coaches and whatever we can do to, because you hear about Bullard baseball. You've heard about it for years. I mean, come on. But to be a part of it, and then some of the coaches that have coached here, it's like, wow, Bob Bennett. I forgot Bob Bennett. Well, I mean, was a guy. I mean, come on. And then Noakesy, I mean, come on. Nobody replaces that guy. So, and he's on staff. And I really enjoyed spending my time with him. And talking about games when I was a sophomore in high school, we played Bullard at a playoff game. I think it was the semis. And it was at Clovis High, I think. And we beat him 2-1. And he remembers the first and third defense or ground ball that a little too slow on turning the double play. I won't name the second baseman because everybody knows him. But he says, should have turned that double play, and we beat him. We ended up beating him. And I was the center fielder in that game. And it was just, we talked about that last year when we were driving on the bus. Here I am sitting with Mike Noakes on the bus, going to Hanford to play a game. And we started talking about that stuff. So that part's been really good. And by the way, he still sees things in practice. And he'll come over and say, hey, I'm like, gosh, you are right on. You're absolutely right. So he's going to stay on. And I'm really excited about him because he is a treat, a national treasure, really, in a lot of ways. Awesome.
Was there any hesitation when Aaron decided to focus on the academic part of getting his credential and you being asked to step in?
I think there were some stipulations. I said, the plan is Aaron to stay right in there. Yes, we don't want to fire Aaron. We want him around. We just need him to get his credential. So I said, well, I don't want to do a co-coach thing. I think that's too hard on him. And really what I'm allowing to do is just stepping in and taking the pressure for him. So, because, there's so many aspects to being a head coach, and you got to juggle a lot of balls, a lot of irons in the fire, and to get a credential at the same time. It's almost impossible. So I will take that from him, take that off his plate, but yet he'll still do a lot of head coaching chores because he's going to learn.
I know we both went to the Bullard Clovis game to scout you guys, and it was. I think it was hard to see you as a not as a Bullard Knight, but as an assistant coach.
yeah, as an outsider, I was like, it's just weird. It was just weird to see.
Yeah.
And because I'm gonna just be honest, because that's what I want our show to be, as much as I can anyway. I felt like there were things I could just read would have been maybe done differently. Some things, so how managing the game a little bit. Was there a point where like you missed
having the last?
Yeah, just managing the game. I mean, that was one thing when we played you. You know, if you hit and run, I would always memory bank what the count was, how many outs were, and what inning we were. Why was Tom hit and running there? and one, just to see if there was going to end up being a tendency, and then to think about why you did that. Did you like sitting back, just managing the game, something you want to come back and do? Was there points during last year where like that was an itch you needed to scratch, maybe?
Well, you know, when you've been a head coach for 20 years and you're just kind of used to that,
yeah.
You know, it's hard to put on an assistant, but it wasn't at the same time because, you know, I'd had my fill. You know, I was good. You know, I was in a good spot, and I understood my role, and so I was okay with, you know, what was going on because that's how he was going to learn. I couldn't like say, okay, you need to do this. You know, he's got to learn how to manage a game. And how do you learn? You learn by trial and error.
Yeah, for sure.
You know,
for sure.
And so
we all did.
You know, and I wouldn't tell him like, hey, you know, maybe after the game, hey, look, you know, first inning or, you know, second inning, and we were struggling scoring runs anyway. We got a sack bunt there. You know, we got to get runners second, third, and try to get our four hitter to maybe bang one across. So it was, you know, but there's so many, you know.
We do that. I mean, now with our staff,
second guessers all over.
Sure.
The place.
Yeah, no,
I mean, it's
sure.
That's just part of the game because say you thinking I should have bunted, but exactly the guy hits in the gap and it you know scores two, then it's a mute point anyways. But I think just us knowing you by obviously playing against your teams and you, and then coaching against you, I think there was just situations where I was like, even Noakes, like knowing Noakes, like, okay, I think there should have been you know, Noakes would have done it a different way, or Tom would have done, you know, but like you said, it's a learning curve.
It is part of learning.
He has to, you know, figure it out for himself and not have everything just handed, you know. So
no, you know,
I just think it was tough for an outsider knowing that, man, Tom probably really wants to do this right now. Or, you know what I mean? That's just from the coach's point of view.
Honestly, it felt a little weird putting different colors on at first.
Yeah, I bet.
You know, that took a little getting used to because, you know, it's such in your blood for so many years. You know, when you have all that gear, you know, at home and you have all those memories and you look at the different things around your house or whatever. But I'm okay now. You know, I'm really happy to wear the colors and to hopefully, you know, help the program and the community out a little bit. You know, it really is not about me. I'm not going to make it about me. I'm just not, because there's a bigger plan here, right? And let's get after it and play hard. And, you know, here's my 2 cents, but I want my coaches to coach and I want the players to play and buy in and do all those things. And that takes time. So we're doing some morning workouts now, and and I'm hearing myself, you know, preaching the message of unselfishness and, you know, playing hard. And, you know, you're not going to play hard in a game if you don't play hard, even in this agility drill. It's all about it's all about effort. How are we going to give effort in a game if you're not giving effort in this drill? You know what I mean? It really does translate or carry over into a game. It's just one speed, play hard, be tough. All that is. I can't be, you know, I'm not mentally tough if I'm not physically in shape, you know, because if I'm starting to get tired, then I break down mentally. Well, then we got to be in good shape and we got to fight through right now because these little guys are dying. You know, they haven't had a lot of baseball activity or any activity. And so really when coaches are doing different stations, I'm just really going the mental aspect of it about being tough and push through and you can do it. You're going to be okay, you know, kind of a thing. So I think there's a lot to be said for that carries over into a game, which becomes a culture and expectation of this is how we do it, kind of thing.
Going forward, too, you know, you guys will more than likely end up in the Coke Classic next year, depending on how this all plays out as far as
hope, right?
The COVID stuff goes. There's, I'd be 99% sure you play Buchanan.
Sure.
What would be the emotions going into that?
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to focus on the Knights and making sure we're prepared. And I'm not gonna, if I don't want my players to listen to all the noise and all that, then I can't.
Yeah.
You know, I can't do that. So I really will be focused on get ahead, strike one. You know, are we going to bunt this guy over here? Regardless of who the opponent is, it really is going to be focusing on just trying to play the very best game we can that day, and hopefully being better than them that day or whoever the opponent is. And I'm just going to be honest, because it's a lot of fun, you know, to get back in and to sort of run things again and to see the effort. I mean, we've had morning workouts the last 2 mornings, and the effort has been tremendous, and the attitude has been great. It's really been enjoyable, you know. And I know it's early and all that kind of stuff, but there's something there, you know. And so I'm excited to what the pieces we can put together, because we just want to be relevant and be competitive. We want to be in the conversation of those better teams. And then we want teams to start circling up, you know, the Bullard game. You know, like, oh, we got Bullard third game of the year. That needs to mean something. But that's going to take some time. I mean, it really is. It's not going to happen overnight. We have to be patient with what we're trying to do and do it the right way.
That's how it used to be. Bullard was feared.
Absolutely.
You know, it was, and it hasn't been that for a while now, and it needs to be that, you know, because that's just, you know, when you talk about the Central Valley, you talk about the track. Bullard's not mentioned anymore like it used to be. And being a Bullard guy and alum and going through the whole entire program from Little League all the way up, you know, it sucks because that's all you knew was when Central Valley was mentioned, it was Bullard back in the day. You know what I mean? So to see them kind of on the outside, you know, it would be nice for them to get back in and be the one that's circled. And, you know, even though Bullard's not on the track, they're going to, you know, we got to win this game. They're going to give it to us. So,
yeah, in the history of the Valley, it's Bullard, Clovis, Buchanan. Name more success than those 3 programs.
Yeah.
You know, one thing
at that into the high level.
Right. I think maybe in the upper echelon a little bit more, but you know, but that is just a result of the success other teams are having, and you got to match that intensity. And so you got to bring it, you know, and it's just, there's just no shortcuts to it. So I would say that, you know, since with my short time with Bullard is I've come to understand the pride that Bullard takes in its community, in its program, in its school, in being being an alumnus from Bullard. I mean, I've gone to some fundraisers and talked to different people. There is a strong sense of, there's a real identity with being from Bullard. And I'm coming to understand that now. And it runs deep because it's a long time. I mean, there's a long history. And that's been fun to discover over the last few months, talking with different people that have been there, done that. It's like, I get it. I'm starting to get it now, you know, because as an outsider, you just don't know. But as you get, you know, you become steeped in it, you know, it's really something. It really is.
Yeah.
Playoff system. I think was it 19 was the first year you had all 16 teams fill up a bracket.
Yeah.
Which was cool, I thought.
Right. That's how it should be.
No buys.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that there's something we can do further to make sure that stuff happens? Or, you know, we've talked about realigning leagues a few times.
Yeah.
Now with Memorial being Division I, you know, would you like to see a replacement of leagues with Bullard's not playing the majority Division II, Division III games?
Yeah.
And then have to go playoffs.
And then go playoffs and be but not only that schedule only helps them get a 10 seed.
Right. Those are great questions. And I don't know if I have all those answers. Because that's really deep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's a far-reaching sort of question in terms of, because there's so much that goes into the decisions of realigning leagues. I mean,
you have football programs that can't compete in other leagues, and I know James loved that baseball had finally, because we couldn't remember the last time the bracket was full and there was 0 buys.
Right.
I thought that it just was great, and then you had, I think, 7 and 9 seed playing for what were the seeds? Clovis was a 7. And Frontier was like a 9 seed or
something.
But you know, it just made it, you know, that more
anybody
tough.
could beat anybody.
Right.
You know? Which is baseball in general.
Oh, let me tell you, any given day, because I've had teams that were far better than the team in the other dugout, and they beat us. And then I've had teams that, we maybe weren't the most talented, but because of the expectation and the culture of the deal, we would pull out some wins when we shouldn't have. And it's a lot. It takes a while to get there. I keep saying this isn't going to happen in Bullard in 1 year. It's just not. It's a process. We've got to get. I'm already meeting with the Babe Ruth people. I've already contacted the principal at Baird and the ADs at in Tenaya and things like. I got to get to know these people. Who is the lifeblood here? Bullard talent and Wawona and things like that. So I've got to understand the big picture before we can start really sort of funneling that, and getting that talent to stay here and to not transfer and to want to be a Knight and to play in the Babe Ruth program and come up through it, and then play at the junior high level and then come to the high school and be really excited as a freshman to someday get to play on that field. You have to aspire to something like that. And I think that, unique situation, is that, I know there's just the one field over there, so they have to come over and, sometimes take ground balls and things like that, which is an adjustment for me because we all had our own fields over there at Buchanan. And so now it's a different sort of management tool. But I also know that I'm going to stop that. And then we're going to get your freshman JV field really good shape and you're self-sufficient over there because I don't want you comfortable on the varsity field. It's got to be a place like,
hallowed ground.
It's got to be earned.
Yes.
And we've talked about that too, where when I was a freshman or a sophomore, I mean, it didn't matter. You didn't step foot on a varsity field unless you were on varsity.
Right.
And it's just like, I think it's taken for granted now.
Absolutely.
My JV year, the only time we got to be on the varsity field was after varsity lost.
I mean, we got snapback hats until you got the fitted hat was the
trucker.
It was, yeah.
Now you've arrived.
Coach Escanio brought us up for the varsity team to just pound on us after a loss, and that was our only time on the varsity field.
Right.
So
yeah. So I just think that takes time, and experience, and over time, I think it can be what the Bullard community expects and wants and deserves.
Well, and there's some talent coming up through.
Sure.
Some young guys coming up, and it's going to be a challenge. It's different. It's a different environment altogether, and it'd be interesting to see how it plays out. Obviously, we're in the same league, so I don't want to wish you that much luck going forward.
Well, I'm not coaching, so I'll just be I'll run around to all different kinds of games and whatnot.
There you go.
Before we do wrap up, though, too, with 2019 and you stepping down. That was James Patrick's last year. Just can you talk about? I mean, you guys had some battles for a lot of years.
Oh yeah.
And just what how much you appreciate maybe that, and then how he went out.
First and foremost, I'm going to tell you this: he made me better because I had to be better if we were going to compete at their level because they were top dog, right? And so for us to get to that level, I'd watch how we'd coach. I'd watch how we'd practice. I asked, and so the mark he's leaving on baseball is big. I mean, it really is. I wouldn't want to be the guy filling those shoes, right? KP's or Chris has got to do it. It's like, I know it's your dad and everything, but still, it's your dad, But I will tell you that, James and we had some great battles and a lot of gamesmanship. Between us on game day and things like that. And so, which all made for a fun environment, sometimes very stressful. But we knew when we played Clovis, we had to bring our A game or we were going to get embarrassed. And luckily we weren't embarrassed a whole lot. But I mean, there were some embarrassing losses, let's be straight. But he made me a better coach, made me to run a program better, to aspire to hopefully reach that level. And so I would have nothing but admiration for what he has done, over the course of his tenure and the success. I mean, come on, that's 700-something wins. My gosh, that's ridiculous. And so, and he's earned them all. He really has. That guy is a hardworking, tough nut that expects the same of his, because he's had many teams. Come on, some of those teams that he had to beat us in finals, we were better, but they were tougher that day. So I learned about toughness from him. And how to be sound, and guys, you got to know what to do when the ball's hit to you, to anticipate. And so it was I think the way he went out is, how can you go out any better? I mean, come on, really? You're not expected to win that thing. You weren't even all that good at the beginning of the year, and then you win the final game, and then you trounce the team. You know what I mean? And you get rained out, and then you come back, and that's a tough thing. Just that final when they had to split that game and then come back and play it again. But one thing that Clovis High baseball and James always did, his teams were prepared to play, and so that made me feel like, man, we need to be prepared to play. What does that mean? Well, that means every day in practice, we've got to be competitive and we got to apply pressure. And you got to learn to play with pressure, because some of those Friday night games over at Clovis High or at our places were packed. And you had to pitch, you had to get strike one, you had to make that play. You had to clutch up and come up with a big hit. It was so good. And it was really fun to be part of that environment. You wanted to win like heck, trust me. But I think that, he has left his mark, and, you couldn't go out any better than the way he did.
No, and that team was like, I mean, we played them in the track, and I think the team was just like, we're not going to lose for him. It was, right. They were going to do everything they could to win for him. I
would agree.
And I think when you're a coach and you have players that do that, I think that says a lot about you as a coach as well. So right.
Another kind of thing is loyalty, man. He did the same thing with his coaching staffs over the years.
Oh yeah, kept same guys.
A lot of the same guys. Sure. GC obviously I think left 3 years ago, but with Coach Essien and all that, and then you mentioned the track. It forces you to play 7 innings.
Yeah.
There's some leagues,
right?
It's 10-0 after 3. There's even I know Clovis East is struggled some seasons as well as Central. They can still be. I mean, it's still 7-inning games. I mean, I've never had an easy game against Central. I've never had an easy game against East. Maybe 1 or 2, and that's due to an injury here or their ace didn't go or something like that. It's always 7 innings. You just can't get away with anything in the track.
No, it's you got to be ready to play. But then but that's what makes it fun. Games mean something, and that you want games to mean something. And so when you play in the track day in and day out, you have to bring your A game. I mean, it's just the way it is. And that translates into we have to bring our A game to practice every day. I'm sorry, whatever happened to you, in math class, you got to leave that at the gate right now, because we need you to turn this double play in this drill, and you need to be all in, kind of a thing. So, and then after practice, if you want to talk about it, we'll talk about it. Or if you want to talk to another coach, whatever it is. But that was the thing that, that was kind of really big takeaway from the track, was you had to be ready to roll.
I don't think these guys are ready for it, It's a fun league. We'll get after it. I'm excited. I know, Andy, we'll be all right next year. Hopefully, like I said, we'll see what happens with sports, but
right. I know. I hope we come back.
I don't even know if they're going to do it at school yet.
It's a very fluid situation. Who knows?
Coach, thank you for taking some time out of your day to sit with us.
Pleasure. It was an honor. Thank you.
Semi-good luck going forward, other than when you play the Coyotes.
Right.
That's episode 64 of the Hit or Die podcast.
Hit or Die.